Alright, I'd like to show you how to edit an existing pattern swatch. Our pattern swatches come preloaded with a basic library that Illustrator has, but you are able to edit any of those to create new ones. You can also create and make your own with this program. But let's talk about when you use pattern swatches. Typically it's for a fill. You can use them in strokes, but strokes are usually too thin that you don't actually get to see the pattern very well, and because you can't really see it, it winds up taking a lot of memory that you don't really need to dedicate to that. So we're thinking about what we would fill, let's say, a garment in with the pattern of a fabric. Now, the pattern swatches are over here in your swatches panel. It will also include the preload sets of some basic array of colors. And then let's talk about the setup over here for a minute. This shows your thumbnail view like what we see here. You can switch to a name view if you'd rather, and then scroll down through all of them if you want. I personally prefer this setup. Now we have icons across the bottom of the panel and then a menu up here. They pretty much have the same things. The menu will have some options to maybe change your thumbnail views to medium large or a smaller large list. Depending on the size of your computer screen, you may want to go for some larger ones. And some of these others, the little icons down here mean the same thing. Over here we can show all our swatches. We can just show the color, solid colors, gradients, patterns, or even color groups or whatever. Right now I'm going to leave it on all. Here is swatch options. That's where we could turn around and name swatches, adjust anything, things like that. I'm not going to change anything on our basic white swatch right now. Over here is creating color groups. That will be covered in a different tutorial. This is creating a new swatch. We're not going to do that just yet. And here is one that I am going to go into, Swatch Libraries menu. Now we can go into here, we can go into almost this whole list will actually be a color scheme or groupings of colors, solid colors. You need to go down to what's called patterns if you wanted to get into the pattern sections of the swatches. We have basic graphics that have to do with dots, lines, and some textures. The decorative ones are very fun, a decorative legacy, monster patterns. It's just a name for the groupings. And then the nature ones, you have nature animal skins. If you were looking for a cheetah print or a zebra print, you can go here. And some natural foliage. In fact, actually, we can check out natural animal skins. And there's a bunch loaded right there. There's a zebra. So it'll open up the smaller file in the library. Notice though, when I click on zebra, it added it to the library over here in the panel that I can see. So I could do that if I wanted to check out a few of these and throw them in there, I can. Also, once I have opened the Swatch Library menu, I have the arrows right here that will allow me to flip through the different menus. Here's nature foliage, which would be some pattern tiles, fall leaf colors, and you can hover over them to find out what the name of it is before maybe you click and add it. And so you could toss a couple of them in here into your swatches panel. You can minimize that and move it over here if you want, or you can just close it after you've gathered a few swatches. Now let's talk about editing one. You can edit any of them that you want, but you will find as you drag them onto the artboard, and that's how you would do that. I like this one here. It's somewhat simple. I'm going to bring it over here to the artboard. It actually is fairly small. That's probably about a 1 inch by 1 inch design. I'm going to get my zoom tool and I'm going to zoom in closer so I can get up close and see all the smaller design elements that make up the motif that then is repeated. Several of these others, if you drag them off, you'll find they're different sizes, or the motifs can be extremely complicated. I'd say for your first few attempts at playing around with this, stick to a simpler design. If you don't like what you pulled off of here, just select it like so and delete. Alright, so Actually, I'm going to bring that back out. You just click, hold your button down, and drag it back onto your artboard. Now, let's talk about some of the things going on here. We have different elements. First of all, it's all grouped together. So when I click on one thing, it's all together. That's fine, but I can go to Object, Ungroup, and maybe ungroup some more until ungroup is grayed out. Then that means when I click on individual things, they are now their individual objects and not grouped. We'll group it back after I change some things. Now, very carefully, let's look at all of it. You can see that some of these objects hang off the edges. That means that it's going to be cut at the edges of that pink background square. And that means that the next one that repeats itself when you go to fill an object will butt up right up to that line. And by having objects that hang off one line that also mimic the left and the right hand side of what's on that line, or the right hand side of the tile to the left hand side of the tile of what would be butted up to this edge, makes a seamless repeat. You'll see that if you watch the video for seamless repeats. But on this one, I just kind of wanted to point that out. Now, let's go in and change some colors. I can hold my Shift key down and select several more of them. My program's just going to catch up with me. So now I've got all those lines right there. And they are a single line with a stroke. And I actually want to change them to, let's say, a purple. Good. And let's select the background square. Now, when I go and click and select, I need to make sure that my mouse doesn't slip any little bit and move anything out of place. Otherwise, when everything goes to line up, I'll have some problems. All right, so this is a square, no stroke on the outside. Here's a fill color, and I can double click on the fill if, let's say, I wanted to get in here and find a color to fill it with. A little too dark. I need to lighten it up if I want the purple lines to show up. Now, see all these different objects all around? A lot of them if I wanted to click on them. Let's use a different selection tool to grab all of those at once. See how I get this one? And I click and it selects everything that has the same attributes, meaning that same color. And again, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to find one that I like. I just double clicked on this fill box, got my color picker. I adjusted it a little bit, still looks a little pink. I can use my magic wand to pick all the little dots again. Actually, let me get that over here. Trying to get just the edge of it because it looked like it got that square. I didn't really want the square. Let's zoom in a little bit more. Now maybe I can actually get that dot a little bit better. I know. There we go. We'll see how that works. No, just trying to get the. See, I keep getting the square there. Just want that. I may have to go in here and select. Then my program's just running a little slow. Trying to get the little dots. That thing you can look at, they're all on the same layer. Why are they not letting me do that? Let's check out a different view. One is called Outline. Ah, interesting. They're not even showing up on that. Outline puts everything in just lines so that you can get to anything that might be buried underneath a different space. Well, tell you what, just for quick purposes here, I'm not going to worry about trying to get those little dots. Let's just zoom out a little bit here. Open up our swatches panel again. Now, with my selection tool, outside of all of this, I'm going to click and drag my marquee around it, making sure I got all parts of this. I'm going to group them back together so that when I click on them, everything comes together. Now, there was the original one over here called Lotus Squares Color. I am going to drag this into my swatches panel. All I have to see is the plus sign, and then it drops it in there. Now, I just undid that because what happened is everything's selected, and when I clicked on that, it tried to fill it with that pattern. So I need to deselect my pattern. And tell you what, we can come over here and draw a giant fox like so. And because that pattern was selected, see how it filled it with the new pattern. Now, as long as this is outlined right there, I can go to my edit pattern. And we can name this pattern if we wanted to. New pattern swatch, let's see, that was a lotus flower, need a purple one. Okay, all of this right now I'm not going into just yet. We are just giving that a name. See, now it's a lotus flower purple. All right, and we can just click done. Cancel. Let me go to where we can fit all in window. All in window. There we go. All right, that's our pattern tile that we edited. This right here is the rectangle that we made. Notice that when I click and drag, I am also scaling the pattern with it. Maybe I don't want to do that. I can always go to the scale, and I can untransform the pattern. Well, I've already scaled it before I did that, so. And bigger. You can play around with those. That's basically how you edit a pattern. You've got to drag it out of the swatches panel. You can play around. You can delete parts of it. Some of the more complicated ones, you can get rid of some, change colors, things like that, and then drag them back in and making sure nothing is selected over there. Once your swatch is selected, you can go to edit pattern, and that's your pattern options, and name it if you want. There you go. Go ahead and try it out yourself. Have some fun. You will do actually a couple different edit pattern swatches. I'm trying to think if there was an assignment on there. Please go ahead and title your page. Make sure that you have your name up here in your file name so that when everybody starts loading them, I know whose is whose. And then play around with some out here. Let me see that I can find the original and recolored ones or edited ones in the swatches panel. Maybe even draw a shape and fill it with your brand new swatch. All right, there you go. Thanks.